As friends we gather, hearts are true. Spirits near, we call to you. Is Ouija Origin of Evil going to be a good movie? So Ouija Origin of Evil is the prequel, kind of, to the garbage 2014 movie Ouija. God, that was such a horrible movie. And even though I hated the first one, I actually walked into this one with a decent amount of optimism for two reasons. First, pretty much every interview I read leading up to this movie with the people involved was that they all seemed to recognize and actually own up to the fact that the first one was so bad, and they really wanted to do something better. They wanted to give us something better. First step to solving a problem is recognizing that there is one. The second reason was the director choice in Mike Flanagan. He's the one who directed Oculus, which is a pretty creepy, underrated movie. I actually like that movie quite a bit. I'm not a huge fan of its climax. It's still pretty confusing when you watch it, but very underrated movie. And then he did this little movie on Netflix that not a whole lot of people saw called Hush, which again is a really underrated movie. It's very creepy, it's very unique, there's a lot of really great execution. And when I saw that he was directing this sequel, I said, okay, hopefully he's not just a director for hire. Hopefully they let him do his own style, they give him a lot of creative freedom, they don't have a whole lot of reins on him. Let him take it in his own direction. Let me say first and foremost that Mike Flanagan did a damn good job above anything else of selling that this movie takes place in 1967. They go so far and take so much effort into really bringing you into that time era that this is one of the few movies that I can remember in recent times where I could not pick out anything that did not belong. There was not a song or an item or something in the background that just doesn't fit. Everything felt like the 1960s, even to the way that this movie is stylized. Like, it's got a little bit of a Quentin Tarantino feel when it starts off. You get the old-fashioned Universal Pictures logo. It starts off with one of those old-fashioned time cards. They have the little cigarette burns that come into the frame, which they used to do for projectionists. A lot of really minute details that some people might not even pick up on, that I'm looking at this and I'm like, damn, they really put a lot of effort into that. That's really cool. Beyond all that, I will say this about Ouija Origin of Evil. It gets a lot of things right that majority of horror movies get really wrong. The story of this movie is really engaging. The setup, the whole reason why the Ouija board is involved in the first place is totally believable in this. It's not just like the first movie where, oh, let's get a bunch of modern age teenagers to play with a Ouija board just because it's the name of the movie. The story of this movie focuses on a mother and her two daughters, and they're all basically con artists. They get people to come in who want to speak with their dead relatives. They have all these little props and tricks around the room that give the false portrayal that they're actually communicating with the dead. The Ouija board hits the stores, the mom buys it, brings it in to be the new prop for their little crime ring. The daughter starts playing around with it. Some crazy stuff starts to happen. Very basic, easy, simple setup, but it works and it makes sense. And the reason that the Ouija board is there in the first place makes sense in this one. Most of the reason why you're really engaged in the story of this movie is because you actually care about the family that's at the center of this story. How often can you say that about a horror movie? You actually give a damn if the main characters live or die. You're really intrigued by this family's little crime ring, and you're interested in the relationship between the mother and the daughters because the movie actually takes its time to develop its characters. It's not in any rush. It's not like most horror movies where they just throw people on the screen for cannon fodder. The mother, played by Elizabeth Reese, is a really strong character. She's a strong mother. You really buy into her being a single parent with a recently deceased husband. Annalise Basso returns from Oculus to play one of the daughters. She does really well. And the newcomer, Lulu Wilson, who plays the youngest daughter who ends up being possessed in this, she does really good and is pretty damn creepy when the movie calls for her to be. Elliot from E.T. even shows up in this movie to play Father Cockblock. This character and this actor was the one performance that I just didn't buy into in this movie. You know, he really falters in comparison to the three women, and a lot of his scenes just did not work for me. You know, most of the movie he kind of walks around with this about to burst into tears face, like, and I wanted to laugh at him in a lot of scenes. And he has that one scene that's in a lot of movies where, you know, they have the one character that sits down that knows way too much, and he has to give this big long exposition scene to explain to the viewers and the characters what's going on. And he just did not deliver in that scene. And a lot of the emotional impact of the movie is supposed to kind of rely on that scene, you know, all the revelations. and it just didn't work for me at all. They portray his character really weird in the first half of this movie too, you know. He's like a red herring almost. He just shows up in the weirdest times. I really expected by the end of this movie that he was going to be the guy underneath the mask when Scooby and the gang show up. Like there's a scene when Annalise's character is about to kiss the boy of her dreams and their lips just about touch, and then Father Cockblock shows up behind him and he's like, "Hey, can I speak to you over here?" And then 5 minutes later, the dude's out on a date with their mother flirting with her, and I was like, man, dick move. Now with all the things that this movie gets right, the one thing that it unfortunately falters in is the scares. I was not scared watching this movie at all. There was about 2 jump scares that got me. Everything else, the jump scares, the scenes that were supposed to be really shocking, the little twist scenes, all of them are way too telegraphed in my opinion. I saw all of them coming. I saw the little hints drop miles away, and none of it really had the effect it was supposed to have on me because I saw it all coming. Now, even with the lack of scares, I was still really enjoying this movie. I was surprised how much I was enjoying this movie. At about the hour mark, I was sitting there thinking, oh my God, I'm actually going to recommend seeing the Ouija sequel. And then the moment came where all that changed. And this is not going to be a spoiler, but for those of you who have seen the movie, as soon as Father Cockblock comes in to get his own psychic reading, from that point to the end of the movie, this movie took a steep nosedive. The story directions it decides to go in, the twists it decides to bring up, like with the history of the house and all these conveniences of why they're being haunted and all the connections to the characters, it was just, why did you decide to do that? You were on such a roll and you just landslided into a mediocre horror movie. Literally when I was watching the last 15 to 20 minutes of this movie, I was on such a high, and then I just slowly started slumping down into my chair, shaking my head going, oh God. It's a totally different movie once the climax starts. The acting goes out the window. All sense of realism goes out the window. It's a CGI fest, which totally takes you out of the 1967 setting. It gets corny. It gets cheesy. It's so convenient, and you're just sitting there like, you had it. You had me. You were right there. You were at the finish line. Why did you fall? Why did you turn around and run the other direction? I'm serious, guys. This movie, for the most part, was a see it in theaters, and then that last 15 minutes just dropped it all the way down to the rating that I'm about to give it, but I gotta do it. It really took me that far down in my enjoyment of this movie. Giving credit where credit is due, Ouija Origin of Evil is a hell of a lot better than Ouija, even though that's not saying much. They get a lot of things right that most horror movies get wrong. The direction is good, the acting is really good, but unfortunately that finale was just so out of left field and just totally dropped the ball on everything that it had going for it, that this movie is not a movie that you need to rush out to see in theaters. This is a movie that you can sit at home and enjoy it for the most part until that last 15 minutes. If you're interested in seeing Ouija Origin of Evil, be patient, wait about a year, and sit down and enjoy it on Netflix. So what did you guys think of Ouija Origin of Evil? Did you like the original? Did you think that this movie was on such a high like I did and totally nosedived in the last 15 minutes? Put all that in the comment section below and let's talk about it. Like and share this video, and please hit that subscribe button. That way you get to come back and see me next time. But if that's not soon enough to check out some more of my videos, you can check out a few more by clicking right over here.